I'm Megan. So today I'm going to be talking to you about some experiences about when I trusted God and He came through way more than I thought He'd ever would. So me personally, I feel like I've always had a relationship with God. I feel like me and Him have always been really close. Feel like I can talk to Him. He's a good father. But I've had some crazy experiences that I felt like I just had to share. So the first one is when I was doing a job that I didn't think was it was not illegal in any way. It was just like not a godly job. And when I first started, like I would literally cry and thank God for this job because it helped me so much financially. I was so grateful. And I just remember like crying so much, being so thankful. But I do remember there was one sermon that said, you cannot love God and money at the same time. And I remember, I never went to church, by the way. I never grew up going to church. I know a lot of people can't wrap their mind around that, but I just knew God sorely that He died, or that Jesus died for my sins. I knew God, like, more like on a, personal level rather than, like, I guess a community level. But I did start going to church. And in church it said, you can't love God and money at the same time. And every time I would say that, it would just like stick to me. It would like almost make me feel like extremely guilty, which I know He doesn't want for me, but He does want me to trust Him more than trust this job. And I have stopped the job at this point, but not for myself. I'd always want to go back. I stopped for somebody else and other people, but I never stopped for myself and for God. And that was something so I would continue to go back, but I would just always feel guilty about it. And so one morning I was watching a sermon, and this man was talking about his past, and everybody has a past. No one is perfect besides Jesus. And the pastor was on, preaching, and he was like, you can talk about the person that was me as much as you want. Like he's not here now. That guy is dead. So because you repent, you become a new person, and I just felt like I didn't want to be a dead person walking anymore. And so for some reason, that sermon specifically really spoke to me. At this time, I was using that job as my only source of income. And I decided that, you know what? I'm not anymore. I decided right there for myself and for God that I was not going to go back to this job. And at this point, I did not have a job lined up. I'm just a student in school, like in college. I had just paid college in full. So like, a couple $1,000s. So I didn't have a lot of money in my bank at all. And I didn't know where money was coming from. I didn't have a job lined up. But I was just like, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. And so that morning, I made that decision. And that evening, I never look at my bank account, by the way. That evening, I was just like, oh, maybe I can, look at my rewards for, my credit cards. Maybe they have, gas cards or something for groceries, And I looked at it. I opened my account, and $2,000 out of nowhere went into my account that night. That morning, I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm trusting in God. I'm leaving, not for anybody else but me and God. That night, $2,000 was in my account. And this is no way to brag. Please do not think of this as a brag. This is showing what God can do for me, and He can do that and much more for you as well. And I literally just started bawling. I was bawling, crying. And I just couldn't believe my eyes. Even now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, and some people were like, how is that possible? And I've been paying college, whether in loans or by in cash, for my whole college, and I'm in my senior year currently, and for the first time my whole year since 2017 in college, I got a grant, and I didn't even realize I got a grant until that night. And I was like, what? And so that was obviously so amazing. And time goes on. And I'm trying to look for a job, which is a whole other story, which I'll get to. I'm trying to look for a job. And I don't remember if I got an interview or I just started working at this job or what. But I remember it was after I got the $2,000 because I was still job hunting. And I remember looking and being like, at my account, and again, I was running low, groceries, payments, stuff like that. It all piles up over time. And I remember looking at it. And again, it was not good. But the worst thing you can do when you trust in God is stress, worry, fear. You cannot have that and the trust in God at the same time. And so I just looked at it and I didn't worry. I just went about my day like normal. And then I went to bed. And the next morning it said I had an e-refund. And I was like, what? From school again. And to this day on, I have no idea where this money came from. I looked at my account and there's $750 in my account. I was like, what? Where did this come from? To this day, I don't know where this money came from. It must have been a scholarship. I have no idea. But I was like, trusting in God fully. And you do not have to only trust him with his finances. I think I was reading a book and I was like, yes, we will trust God with, little things, but sometimes it's hard for us to trust God with big things, And that's just human. That's just like how we are. And that's okay. I'm not saying there's any fault in that, but I'm just asking you to give a chance to trust God. Another example I have is with God will give you exactly what you want when you ask for it, okay? Or if he doesn't, it's like he's getting you something else, okay? So I have this story. I've always wanted to build structures, specifically. Like, I wanted to build, like, the most beautiful, extravagant structures. That's why I went to civil engineering. There was this company, and it was a small company in my city, and I was like, I want that company. I said, God, I want that company. I want to work there. Solely based on, like, what they did. They built, like, beautiful houses, mansions, stuff like that. That is what I wanted to do. I was like, God, I want this job. And they were like, oh, no, we're not hiring. And I was like, not gonna give up. I was like, no, I want this job, and I think like that was God like trying to tell me like, oh, maybe this isn't the right one for you, but I was like persistent. I said, no, God, I want this job. And I would go to the career fair, I would talk to the woman, I would email her all the time. I was like, I want this job. I was determined. And then I got the job. And the job was not a bad company, in my opinion. It wasn't bad. It was the expectation I had versus what they offered, being in school and everything. I was like, I'm hoping they like accommodate well with my scheduling, right? But they were like, oh, you have to work this amount of hours every week, and I wasn't really allowed to take time off for like winter break or summer break. And that was kind of like hard for me. And then realizing that I had experience prior to this job, I'm also paying for school. And I was getting paid the exact same as somebody right out of high school and doing the exact same job as them, which kind of like I was just like confused, I guess, because even if I was getting paid the same exact thing as them, and I was just like, why? Like I felt like, to me, like, I'm not saying they should be paid less. I'm just saying I maybe would like $1 more because I'm paying for school, and at the time I was paying out of pocket and all this stuff. I also had previous experience, so I was like, why am I getting paid like the bottom of the barrel kind of thing? And it was just, maybe it could have been ego for me, but that was another thing I didn't like about the job. And so I ended up stopping that job, going to Tokyo for an internship, and then ended up coming back, and I didn't move forward with that job anymore. This job that I literally begged for so long, said to God that I wanted it. He knew I didn't want it before I knew I didn't want it. Like, he knew what was gonna happen, basically. And he tried to stop me, and I was determined. But the next time around, so this is after I got the 2000, I was like calling, because I still needed a job, and I started calling like every single place, just calling everywhere in my city, like any like engineering firm, like, hi, are you doing internships? Because like in the middle of a semester, it just like wasn't easy to get a job or internship, like that. So I was calling everywhere, and a few companies reached out, and I remember doing it differently. And instead of saying, I want this job, I said, God, give me the perfect job in the perfect location with the perfect pay. And I was like, and I would just say that, like, I don't know what you have planned for me, but I'm giving it to you, and I ask for the perfect job, whatever job it is, the perfect location, the perfect pay, and I give it to you. And man, did he give it to me. Like, I got the perfect job. So I've had water, wastewater, structural, and this was the land development experience. So it gave me something different on my resume, which I wanted to be more broad and trying new things. And I got paid $7 an hour higher. So I went from 20 to 27 an hour, which is crazy for an internship. Crazy for like, I literally, when I tell you, I was like, this is not real. Am I seeing things? Do I have my glasses on? I could not believe it. And it was in the perfect location. Like, I was going to school, so the school in the morning, have lunch, and it's at the other side of like the same street my school is on. So it was like literally 5-10 minutes from school. It was perfect. It was really perfect. I couldn't believe that God could give me so much that I've asked for it. Truly, please just give the opportunity to trust in God. I know there are things that happen in your life that don't seem good at the moment. Like, I know I went through a really, really hard few years, and now that I've come out of it, I know it was only for my good. It was only for me to go through that, to help others, and to find a passion in my life. Like, I was meant to go through that pain. And even so, the job that I was talking about, I worked all the way to the end of the semester, but then after that semester they actually ended up laying me off, which is fine. But in the moment, I was depressed. I was going through like a really hard time. I didn't know where money was going to come from and all that stuff. And you know, that was me choosing fear, choosing stress, choosing anxiety over trusting in God, you know. So I am about a month away from graduating, and I don't have a job right now, and which is can be really scary. But every morning I'm just saying thank you, God. And I actually, now that I'm like looking at it away from all that stress and anxiety, I realize this is God giving me a chance to slow down before I start a real career. So really, it's God saying, like, you know, you need to slow down, enjoy your time, don't stress about this. Like, he actually ended up giving me another grant. The grant was actually for a full senior year. So I'm so thankful for that. But yeah, it's gonna be basically the same thing. So I wake up every morning and I try not to stress. Like, I'll do what I can, I'll apply for the jobs that I can, but out of applying, I can just leave it to God and say, God, I pray for the perfect, you know, the perfect job, the perfect location, the perfect pay. Like, I give it all to you. I know you know me more than I do. And every morning I'll pray. I say, thank you so much for this day. I rejoice and be glad in it. I send blessings to my family, my loved ones, and I send blessings to the world, the universe, and I send blessings to the people who've ever hurt me and people who think ill of me. You know, that's just something that I do, and I trust God a lot. I know sometimes it's very hard. I know when you have stress and anxiety and bills are coming, or, you know, stuff has to happen, you know, I know it's really hard, but, you know, you could also just take that leap of faith and see what happens. But yeah, that's all. I think I had some more stories, but I can't remember, so maybe I'll make a part 2. But yeah, thanks for watching.